This conference will now be recorded.
Thank you. Go ahead, you can switch over to the next slide, please.
One sec.
Great. Well, I want to thank you all for joining us this afternoon. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the opportunities and challenges, if you will, surrounding Microsoft Teams. This is really our highest registered conference that we've ever held. We had 251 people actually registered for this event today. We're going to see if we kind of keep the platform going. If you're during the presentations, it might make sense to turn off your video cameras and to turn off your mics. Go to the next slide and I'll explain all that. So we have a button there, I call it the shush button. Click on that and feel free to turn off your mic if you're not speaking, but we'll let the presenters, we have two presenters, we'll let them keep their mics on, please. Next one. We have a chat button. If you have any questions you want to ask, go ahead and chat them. You can chat them to the entire group. And at the end of our presentation, we'll have a Q&A session and we'll try to handle as many of those questions as we can. If you chat it to everybody, that way we won't duplicate questions. So feel free to do it that way. Next button. We have a reminder that your videos could be on. So don't do anything that you don't want the world to see. You don't want to be on YouTube tonight. Okay, next one. You can change the view. You can see who's speaking. You can see everybody in the meeting, or you can just put on the chat. So you can kind of change the view of the screen any way you want. One more. Okay, we have a few sponsors for today. First of all, we have Polycom. Did Sean make it from Poly?
No, Sean's not, but this is Clint Edwards, and
Okay.
I'll do the Poly update.
Go ahead, go ahead, please. We want to thank you for sponsoring today. You're a really good supporter of the Cloud Communications Alliance, and we couldn't do it without you. So take it away, please.
Well, thanks, appreciate it. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning. Just wanted to take a couple minutes. It's great to see everyone. It's great to be able to get together. Just thought I'd share a couple updates from the Poly world. We recently just finished reported our earnings on our last quarter. From a Poly perspective, because we deal in both voice handsets, headsets, and video products, we have a certain view of the market and where things are going and how things are rolling out. A couple insights that we found is that we showed growth in across our voice products, video products, and headset products across all theaters, which was interesting because the pandemic impacted different theaters to greater extents than others. But we've now seen positive and recovery rebounds in all of those. From a voice perspective, we have. From a voice perspective, a couple other observations is in addition to the service provider business and the handset attach in that business that has continued to grow and grow significantly quarter over quarter. What we've also seen is as it pertains to this topic today, we have seen a significant uptick now in the kind of the Teams-based desktop deployments. So Teams running on, we have a product called the CCX that runs Android and runs the Teams app, for example. And we have seen a dramatic uptick on that front as well. So during the pandemic, there wasn't a lot of phones being bought in that world, but now we've seen that. And that sort of indicates to us that the projects are back on from the enterprises in terms of deployments and wanting to figure out solutions. So I think that's a good sign for all of us. Then on the video side, that probably had one of the biggest growth upticks, and on that front, we've recently launched a whole new suite of work from home, and with that work from home set, we have a set of USB cameras that range from small to little camera bars to all-in-one USB monitor with lighting that we're bundling, especially the smaller camera with headsets. And so that's an exciting announcement. We're excited to get into to a further degree into that work from home space, because from a Poly perspective, we don't see the working conditions really changing. We're going to be hybrid for perhaps forever now. And then the last piece is just we still can't seem to make enough headsets, so that business continues to grow. So we look again, if you have questions or want to talk to us, we'd love to talk to you about our work from home suites and where we can do things together. We again enjoy working with all of you in the UCAS world, and we think the future is bright. So that's it from us.
Great. Yeah, thank you. Thanks very much. Our other sponsor, next slide, please. Our next sponsor we have is ScanSource, and from ScanSource, I think we have Chris Marlar here today.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you. And yeah, I just wanted to thank you for the opportunity. ScanSource has been part of the Alliance for a number of years. Just for those of you who don't know a lot about ScanSource, we're a solution provider. We've been providing technology solutions for 25 plus years. What's unique about us, though, is we don't sell to the end user. We deliver all of our solutions through partners. And we have multiple routes to market, whether it's VARs, service providers, ISVs. We have a huge agent community with a recent acquisition of Intelisys. And so what we're doing is we're able to touch the end user in many different routes, how they're consuming technology, no matter which partners or which route they choose. And we're a close partner with Poly, who just spoke obviously. And what we have seen is kind of what they were alluding to is with COVID and the pandemic, certain areas of our business were greatly impacted with the shutting down, but other aspects have just exploded. And through all of our routes to market, whether it's through VARs, service providers, or the agent community, we've seen a huge explosion in the work from home platforms. Not only the cloud-based solutions or the premise-based solutions, but a lot of these cloud-enabled devices. And we've really seen teams get that lion's share of that explosion. So we're seeing a lot of our Teams-enabled devices, like from Poly and some others, really take off in growth. And we think that that's only going to continue. We think this work from home is going to still be a big way to work going forward. And then I think what we're going to be seeing over the next 12 months is as the vaccines work their way through the population and there is some return to the office, what does that look like? What does this hybrid work look like? And we're excited to partner with many of you guys on the Alliance here, a lot of other suppliers to deliver the right solutions. So what does that look like? How do you upgrade your enterprise? And more importantly, how do you make sure those folks that are going to be working from home have the tools needed? And we think Teams is definitely going to be an enabler of a lot of that going forward. So we're excited about this topic. We're excited about the marketplace. For those of you that do business with and through us, thank you. And for those of you that don't, reach out to us, and we'd love to figure out how we can help.
Great, Chris. Thank you. Next slide. Lastly, our final sponsor is NetSapiens. We have the honor of having Anand Bush from NetSapiens on the board of the Cloud Communications Alliance. NetSapiens has been a real strong, and Anand specifically, a real strong supporter of our organization, and they are the force behind today's webinar. So we want to thank NetSapiens for putting it together. As you all know, NetSapiens has a platform that integrates video collaboration, contact center, and unified communications. What you might not know is that their solution fully integrates with Microsoft Teams. So that's what makes them really an excellent speaker for today. So and Kevin, I'll let you introduce yourself in a second. NetSapiens also invited Micah Singer from a company called Teammate. Teammate has a product that also connects with Microsoft Teams. allowing traditional PBXs to use all the features of Microsoft Teams. So you can have the old and the new. So we have two really excellent speakers today who understand the Microsoft space probably as well as anybody in the industry today. So with that, Kevin, let me turn it over to you first, and Micah, please.
Yes.
Wait, one last thing before I actually let you speak. Looks like we're going to be running a little bit over on this. We have a lot to cover today, so if you can kind of block out your schedule for possibly an additional 15 minutes at the end of this webinar, I'd highly recommend it. Kevin, back to you, please.
Okay. Yeah. So, and actually, I think you kind of covered what we do. I don't know if Jason wants to butt in on anything, but I think in the interest of time, I think you've heard about us. You'll hear more about this topic. So, yeah, I'd say let's move on with the slides, right?
Sure, great. My name is Micah Singer. Hopefully you can all hear me. I am the managing director of Teammate Technology. We are, as Joe and Kevin said, we've partnered with NetSapiens to integrate into and lots of other PBX platforms, but in some really cool and unique ways with NetSapiens to integrate into Microsoft Teams, and it's a really popular topic. I think some people are not on mute. I would say everyone go on mute if you're not me. That would be helpful. I do like laugh lines. Someone has to be the pep squad though, so someone stay off mute.
I'll laugh at your bad jokes. Don't worry.
There we go. Okay, so I'm going to spend my part in the beginning. I'm just going to tell you a bit about team collaboration, what's going on, and Microsoft Teams specifically. But the question is, what's your organization doing with Microsoft Teams? What's your strategy? And so hopefully by the end of this call, you'll understand why you need a strategy and what some of your options are, and maybe and what the main some takeaway questions. So starting high level, the trends are that the workplace is becoming more complex. I mean, we all see it. Digitalization, digital transformation's been buzzwords for years, but actually everyone's using more technology, and it's really complex and harder to use. It makes businesses less efficient, so they need a way to organize it all. And that organization, like getting the most out of that automation that you've bought, is in some ways becoming more important than just low price. So this isn't a commodity, this is an efficiency sale. There's more and more knowledge workers globally. I've had a slide, I think there's 60 million in the US, and comparable numbers. They're not the only workers out there, but there's a lot of people sitting in front of their computers dealing with technology like we all do. Obviously the pandemic has accelerated the transformation because you can't call over the cubicle and get help with your technology, so you're on your own a bit more. So better ways to organize it are really important. One really good way to organize technology is called team collaboration. Slack sort of pioneered it. Microsoft's followed up with Teams, which is great, and the pandemic has accelerated it dramatically in uptake. So, you have to make large suppositions in this role. So, I think things really changed in 2018. So in 2018, the world, was the communications world. Most companies had PBXs. A lot of companies were using unified communication tools on mobile, on soft phones. Contact centers has a very important role. It's not everyone on a PBX, but it's a big amount, and very elaborate call control. And then team collaboration was starting to play, but really only in internal communications. So it's voice to your colleagues. In 2028, I think team collaboration, first of all, I think team collaboration is unified communications. So I think unified communications goes away because it just becomes team collaboration. PBX continues to have a role, but team collaboration is bigger than just comms. So you can really put more into it. It's used in so many different ways. PBX and contact center don't go away. The call control, if companies are using call control, they need to get it somewhere. And it's really usually quite complex and heavily supported. So this is how the world transforms. What happened in 2018 was Microsoft announced direct routing, which probably for most people on this call was just another day. June 28th, 2018, but actually it started something quite big. I mean, what they announced was direct routing, and they announced around that time the beta of the Graph API. So they basically just opened themselves up and they said, we're a platform, bring whatever you want. This diagram that you see in front of you is what they published on that day, and I've seen it used a lot since then. But it's, it says Microsoft is here, provider infrastructure is there, and that's all of us. What in the announcement they said now customers can choose their own telecom provider, and they have various options for dial tone in Microsoft. So stated sort of in black and white right there. And I think, what's happened since then has proven that this is an important date. There's been a lot of uptake. And when I say a lot of uptake, we all see numbers. I tried to pull some unique ones that maybe you don't look at. So 250 million plus Microsoft Office 365 customers paying on a monthly basis, 1.2 billion using Microsoft Office in general. So there's been a huge migration. 3 years ago, I think the Microsoft Office numbers were around 60 million. So it's just a tremendous growth. Within Teams, the ecosystem of integration applications, which when we started developing, there weren't many. There were maybe 40 or 50. There's 873 as of yesterday when I checked. So what is Teams? It's a platform, right? I mean, all these things, there's lots of ways Microsoft can monetize their real estate. They do a great job at conferencing and chat and document sharing and email and productivity. And with Microsoft Viva announced a week or two ago, HR management and integration, all delivered through Teams. The stats on Teams announced in the last month or so are 2,700 businesses over 10,000 employees, 117 businesses over 100,000 employees. In November, there were 2 million Android downloads of Teams, probably as many or more of iOS. And something that sort of blew me away was there's 6. It's dramatic. It's dramatic information here. So that's appropriate.
The timing was fantastic.
So 60 million mobile daily active users. So if you want to know what app business users are using on their mobiles, it's probably Teams. And that's really important because that's the where. So that's the big picture. Specifically in our markets, in the United States and Canada, account for about 65% of the Teams organization's use. And UK and the rest of Europe accounts for much of the rest of it. I think it's up to about 90% if you take North America and Europe. So lots of users of Teams in our markets. Kevin.
Right. Yeah. So from here, we're going to talk about, obviously we talked about, why Teams. We're going to talk about why a PBX. And obviously we talk about PBX, be it hosted, be it premise, kind of, we're going to leave that generic. But, why put your PBX or a PBX platform with Teams? So next slide, please. And one of the big issues, when we talk about changing what people use is people don't change sometimes. I love my mobile app. I use my mobile app. 80% of people abandon their enterprise mobile app after the first use. So we want to get these people to change how they're working. Some people will, some people won't. Really, we see about less than 6% actually take that app and seriously use it. And what happens then is we say, hey, use this, and then they don't. And of course, well, we'll talk about what happens next. The other side of it is that there is still a very open marketplace. So, we can see here, the majority of people haven't even deployed mobile UC. So, some of these guys will, take Teams. Some of them may never take this or not in the near future. People may have changed plans since last year, obviously, because of the pandemic being more ongoing. But, kind of thing just to think about here is the best option may not be changing how people work. Some people, the knowledge workers, may want to change, and they'll oftentimes drive that change. Like Slack adoption was oftentimes driven just by people downloading Slack. They wanted that, they did it. You try to push something out that they don't want, you get a lot of resistance, and you end up with 6% compliance. You can go next slide, please. And for example, what happened? You push out a mobile UC client, people end up using the native dialer, and that's kind of the important lesson of making sure that people want it, that it's usable. Because you push this out, they use the native dialer, you lose control of your numbers, you lose control of your calls, your call recordings. People call back that number instead of the mobile number instead of corporate and things like that. And obviously things we have to watch out for: ease of use. 22% don't use the apps because of ease of use, call quality, reliability, integration. So just things you have to think about, when you start saying, hey, if we want to change how you work, you really have to think about, are they going to accept that? Next slide, please. And fundamentally, we have to remember, there is this explosion of knowledge workers. Teams is a great solution for knowledge workers. We just, my own experience, I've used Teams. We have partners that run our platform in Teams. And, for example, one of them, an old Skype for Business partner, now also runs NetSapiens platform. They offer both solutions. They had a retail customer, would not, I don't know if they tried and failed or just played with it and decided not to roll it out for retail. It didn't work for retail. And so, they were used to using shared line appearance, and, they couldn't get anyone to change from using shared line appearance. So they ended up kind of doing this hybrid model of, Teams for the knowledge worker brought into, our platform for call control and shared line appearance. And kind of the example I say is, would you make every company car a delivery van just because some people need a delivery van? And I think the answer here is we need to provide the optimal tool for the right environment. Knowledge workers want one thing, a field person, a call center agent, room phones, maybe have a better, have other options that'll suit them better. Next slide, please. Features. Features matter to customers. And if anyone doesn't get it, it's bells and whistles. I don't know how to represent features in a nice image. Contact center, reporting, recording, and analytics. Very important. If it doesn't matter how great Teams is for the knowledge worker, if it's not providing the features to the call center, that's not going to suit that environment. Call routing, for example, I have a number of people that I've worked with that they're doing like database lookups to do intelligent call routing. Those are things that they need that they can't live without. And just generally configurable, customizable. Platforms that we've been running, these have been in development for decade, 2 decades. They have a lot of features. And obviously, those of us who deploy these products, we've developed a lot of skills to make things work. It's not as flexible, in the Teams environment. So, for the customers that need those things, they're going to want to do kind of this hybrid approach. I think you can't forget about service and support. Obviously, there's the support from Microsoft, and then there's the support from the MSP or CSP. And the question always becomes, what level of support is the customer going to get? Are they going to get the level of support they need from Microsoft? And then, how much control does the MSP, CSP really have? I think those of us who have kind of been in the white label space before, you're kind of a white labeler at that point. You have the ability to do some control, you have the ability to sell, but you don't really control the product. If there's a feature that you don't have, you don't get to do anything about it. If there's, diagnostics that you run, you have what you have to diagnose, but you don't necessarily have full control. So, having been on both sides, I've done a little bit of resale, I've done a little bit of, owning a platform. You'll always have more control when you own the platform, when you have full administrative control. And when it talks about when you want to really deliver high quality service, control is important.
Okay, so I'm gonna just back off of mute. So you're on this call. You're a service provider, and you're thinking, how do we sell against Microsoft? What's the strategy? And often, I end up talking to a lot of people who are in one of these enthusiastically support Microsoft, and they see it as an opportunity to enhance their own sales or to go to a new client base, or at least neutral. We need to acknowledge it exists and have products so our salespeople are productive when they're out selling the other things we sell. I don't have a lot to say for people who discourage the business use. I definitely understand them, and Microsoft sells against a lot of people in a lot of different markets. But that seems to be the vast minority of people these days. What I want to get through in the next couple minutes is what your options are specifically when it comes to integrating your existing infrastructure, your PBX, your trunking, with Microsoft Teams, so the Teams user becomes, your user for telephony. So I've tried to label things and keep it simple because it can get confusing. So basically, I'm going to talk about two categories: the native integrations, the ways you actually use the calls application in Microsoft, and you activate that, and that is, that's what we do. That's more expensive. That's in some ways preferable because it's ease of use. It sort of augments that. I'm also going to talk about the cross launches, which have their own workflows and show what's possible in Microsoft. Generally, harder to use, but you definitely save money, and where that's important, they work in a pinch. So the first option really doesn't concern many people on this call unless we're selling MSP, reselling Microsoft. I mean, this is the all Microsoft approach. The numbers I've heard are something like, and I backed into these, but about 3.75 million Microsoft Teams users use the phone system, either to make PSTN calls, so external calls, or through Microsoft Calling, or through a direct route. About 13% of that number, it uses this all Microsoft approach. It's a great solution for if you don't have a complex PBX needs and you're a small business. It's just easier to buy it in one place, and I guess it can be quite affordable. The user experience is the Teams interface for calling. I have a picture of the mobile and in the client or browser. Where we start to get involved, and we meaning everyone who's not Microsoft, is when direct routing is implicated. So there's two choices with direct routing. There's trunks, and then there's the PBX integration. So 1B here is trunks. To support trunk integration, you need to deploy, or you need to use a compliant or an SBC, but you can choose from a long list of compliant SBCs. You can deploy them in a single tenant mode for a large enterprise, or multi-tenant mode, which would be more how a service provider would do deployment to serve a lot of different enterprises. To activate and manage users, you need to work both in PowerShell via scripting, and often some of these settings are starting to appear more in the Teams admin portal within the Microsoft admin structure. And ultimately, what you're doing is you're connecting a SIP trunk to your PBX or SBC. The Teams user gets native Teams calling on the right, the user experience. Microsoft gets $8 or whatever it is in your market, or with the discount you get, etc. And the service provider gets the inbound, outbound, or each term and DID business, 911 business. So that's one option. That's the trunk route. This is probably the most popular right now that's being sold. Of the 87% that aren't using Microsoft, all Microsoft, probably more than half are using, a lot more than half are using trunks and just calling in Teams. The third option for native is direct routing integration with the PBX. So it's very similar. Everything you need to do is same through the first three bullet points, first two bullet points here. But what ends up happening is the SIP user is registered. So instead of a trunk registration, the user is registered. And with a user registration, this mimics the operation of a soft phone. So in a sense, the calls application in Microsoft becomes a soft phone. on the Microsoft Teams desktop. It's the phone, you have your documents, you have your chat. It's all in one place. It's sort of nice. The user gets, there's a few more screens here on the right. They get the dial pad, of course, but they also get other things that can come in through Microsoft Graph API. So notifications from your PBX. If you have a registered user, you get SIP events. So you know when they have a voicemail, so you can make that pop up within Teams. Or when a call's live, you can make it pop up. You can talk back to the PBX via soft keys, and you can embed. And if you guys have good eyes, there's a really nicely embedded NetSapiens portal in one of these pictures here on the right. So at the end of the day, the service provider gets the PBX, their ridge term, all the business. Microsoft still gets their $8, and the Teams user hopefully gets a satisfying experience. On the cross launches, so cross launches are great for the price conscious user. And you know what you need to do there is you don't have to deal with PowerShell. Because you're not using any of the native dialing, the native calls app in Teams, but you have to create an application. You have to write or deploy or brand an Azure Enterprise application, either generically through the App Store or custom loaded for the enterprise. This application then has to integrate with whatever client you're using that's not Teams. So in this example, this is WebEx calling. It's what Cisco BroadSoft's done. There's a dialer, you push buttons, and then in the bottom it pops up a piece of Cisco software that has to be running on the same computer or mobile phone. So the Teams user gets calls, but usually through a multi-step, multi-application workflow. It does give them access to their current PC and their current UC tools, which they might very much like. So that can make perfect sense if you want to get them out. Microsoft gets no money. And the service provider retains the business, the PBX business, and the origin term. And the last option that I'm aware of, although I'm not going to commit to there being only 5 variations. There might be some other ones that you guys will bring up in Q&A. The last one would be embedding WebRTC. So you can put iframe web pages into Teams, into applications. And WebRTC is a way to trigger communication from a web page. So you need the app, you need to customize it or put it in the App Store and develop that. And then you need your WebRTC app to talk to some server in the background that you run that takes WebRTC and converts it to SIP usually. I think that's what I've seen most commonly. Also works, the workflow can be a little bit easier because you're not launching another app. The user isn't. It doesn't work very well it's not reliable on mobiles, I would say. Some mobiles it just won't work on, but you'd have to test extensively on the mobile networks you'd want to use to make sure it works. Microsoft gets no money for this. There's no license they're buying. And the service provider also retains the PBX and origin term business. Okay, so that's a lot of information. And it might bring up a bunch of questions. So these are some of the questions that I usually ask myself, or I've been asked in other webinars, and I'm going to actually ask Kevin this first one because I think it applies to what you're doing. So what happens if Microsoft just gives away their phone system, their Teams PBX, the thing that they're offering? I would say they include it with more licenses or just make it cheaper. What's going to happen to the NetSapiens business and other PBXs out there, Kevin?
Yeah, honestly, at first I was kind of worried. That question is like, oh shoot, they're really going to undercut. They could undercut it, and at the same time, the question becomes, even if it's free, will you adopt it even if it doesn't do what you want? And so, some customers, low-end customer, will go for it. They'll even sacrifice features for it. But I think a lot of companies will say, look, whether it's $1 or $20 or $30 to do something better, the value of having it done right, for an employee is worth the money. You have an employee worth, tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, and you're worried about $20. So yeah, I don't think it's going to make a big impact if it doesn't have the features. And on the flip side, yeah, I mean, there's always the question, what happens if they say, hey, maybe this connectivity isn't worth $8 to, they're overcharging. What if they reduce the cost of bringing in third-party stuff?
Yeah, no, that's the question that's where I start to salivate, because yeah, I mean, one of the biggest knocks on Microsoft Teams integration right now for the phone system is the $8 cost. So right now, if Microsoft has 5% of their daily active users are using phone system, that's where the 3.75 comes from. If they lower it dramatically and they say, look, you're just buying a soft phone here, it's $2, $3 a month. How does that impact demand? And from what I've seen, because a lot of business is lost in that price consideration, I think that dramatically changes demand. And that I think I think it's consistent with where Microsoft's going with sort of monetizing their Teams platform. So a lot of money, everyone's paying a $2 a month Microsoft tax to have calls integrated into their desktop. So I think that changes things dramatically. One thing, Kevin, that I hear about a lot is Microsoft bought Metaswitch, or Microsoft has tremendous resources to build a viable Teams PBX, something that does have all those features that NetSapiens has. And they could figure out the support equation and access, and they could actually compete. How do you see that playing out?
Well, obviously we hope that they don't do that and that can't compete, but yeah, I mean, obviously the signs are right now, that's not the goal. The signs are they bought that, the meta assets for mobile. The question of, are they going to make that a viable Teams PBX? It doesn't look like it. Are they going to make, are they going to be able to offer the customization, the features, the support to a level that a customer, would be satisfied? It doesn't look like that. So as long as things keep going that way, and obviously I think the reason that they've done this is I don't think they want to do that. They want to let somebody else deal with that part. The same way, we don't do faxing. We work with partners. We've opened that up to multiple fax partners. I think they're going to keep doing that, where they say, look, we don't want to do this. This is why we've made this product.
This one's near and dear to my heart because, some years ago I sold a platform as a service business that it would be something like what Microsoft would do with Meta, and Cisco owns the property, and they've had a lot of trouble bringing it, giving those service providers the control they want while delivering it from a cloud delivery model. So bringing Meta behind the Teams firewall into Azure Cloud and saying service providers is just like it was when it was outside, I don't think so. I think it'll be hard to support. I think it would take a big lift to do that.
Yeah.
So before we get to questions, just some hopefully some concluding thoughts that you might have already taken away from what we've been saying is PBX, call center, and advanced call control hasn't been replaced. Microsoft Teams might have a good small business phone system, but not for the deep needs that many medium and larger enterprises require. If they still require them, they have to get them somewhere. Microsoft Direct Routing and the Graph API are what has created this paradigm shift. But what shifted isn't the whole world of communications. It's really just, it's aware. It's not what they're doing when they're there and how the functionality works. So think of Microsoft as Teams as a desktop and the phones on it. So that's where people can dial now. And then finally, if you're in any of these markets that are affected by Teams, this as evidenced by attendance on this call and others like it, you need a strategy. You just need to have at the highest level of your company, you have to have a plan and do things based on that if it requires creating products and so forth. So that's hopefully what you get out of this and some details. I think that's our last slide. Yes, we get to do question and answer. So hopefully there's been a lot of questions, and thanks a lot for your attention. Joe.
Thank you guys. That was really, really wonderful. And I'm sure there are a lot of questions. So let's do, Karen, do you have the, let me just get some, bear with a second. Oh yeah, okay, here we go. So first question, I'll throw it out to you guys and you can decide who you want to answer it. But what are the pros and cons of SIP trunking version versus the version for individual user registration?
Yeah, okay, I see. Yeah, I get that question a lot. Both, from where we're sitting, we support both. So we get, we're not turning anyone away. So I get requests on both sides. I think SIP trunking is definitely an important first product to offer to anyone who's working in teams. I think there's two ways that SIP trunking is delivered. One is, hey, origin term, we'll sell it to you. Another way is connecting on-prem or existing PBXs to teams. So creating like an annex, some of your users aren't, they don't require the via PBX or NetSapiens even or anything, and they can work in teams. So it's a way to not have everyone be a user on the PBX, keep them in teams when they need to be. Connect two places really.
Yeah. Actually, I put kind of butt in there. I think that's really the individual user registration becomes really handy when you're trying to run that hybrid world where retail stores or field agents are really just PBX users, and your knowledge workers are Teams soft phones. So they're really just in another extension of the platform. I think that's kind of that model where you're a mix of client types, and that's where you really use the registration.
Hey, guys, why do you think that the SIP trunking version is the most dominant at the moment?
It's easiest. Straight up, it's supported out of the box. I mean, it's direct routing is a SIP trunk. So Microsoft makes it so anyone can build a SIP trunk. If you want to register a PBX, you need a third party like Teammate Technology or Call to Teams, or that's it, just two of us. So it's a lot more available.
Okay. Can service providers offer the PSTN access to Teams meetings the same way they used to provide direct routing for Teams calling?
Teams meetings.
Can they offer PSTN access to Teams meetings?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I see Dean wrote it. Thanks, Dean. It's a hard one. That's called audio conferencing. So there's a separate license in Teams called audio conferencing that controls the audio path inbound to Teams meetings. I'm not an expert in that, but what I've seen is that if you don't have audio conferencing, additional call legs do go out through the PBX. We have people who've tried to connect those DIDs to conference bridges with success, but it's a more complex call flow. You'd have to try it out, but I think I've seen people get it to work. And Microsoft's they've opened up some PowerShell provisioning tools for creating an audio conferencing gateway. I think it's in beta still. Someone might know better, but that's probably the route to doing that. The audio conferencing gateway in PowerShell.
Okay. Here's a really interesting one from Darren. A lot of people are trying to route direct to Microsoft, but with varying success. Rumor has it that Microsoft doesn't want you to do it, but it seems to take no action if you actually do it successfully. But that's the first part of the question. Is that accurate?
What's that mean? Route direct to Microsoft with varying? Darren? Can Darren come off mute and explain?
Yeah, Darren, unmute yourself.
Hello.
Hi, Darren.
Hey, sorry, I was referring to SIP routing. So the rumor has it is that you're supposed to use an approved SBC in order to route to Microsoft, but there's a ton of chatter about people being able to do it without that. And
yeah. It's a good question.
There's a ton of risk if you do it without that, and then Microsoft changes it so that doesn't work anymore.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can answer that one. So at first they were really slow to announce certified SBCs, and it really favored the initial list, Audio Codes and Ribbon, and a few others. They've opened that up considerably, and now I think the list is maybe 12 or 15. So there's a lot more options. There's lots of SBC makers that can, become certified on Microsoft. I mean, it's not rocket science, it's TLS. So it's just a matter of how quickly Microsoft gets through the queue. It is better to be certified for sure. We use a certified SBC in our solution. We use audio codes, like a lot of people in the market. But that list will continue to expand. They've hired an external testing organization to do that certification, to maintain those certifications. The second part of your question is, can Microsoft change anything they want whenever they want? Yes. So
Yeah, I figured that part out. I was just wondering if you knew any plans to kind of lock that down more, I guess.
I don't. Yeah.
Thank you.
Really, really good answers. Jeff has a question. Jeff, unmute yourself. I'll see if you guys can say it yourselves, so I don't misinterpret.
I'm here.
Go ahead.
Jeff's unmuted.
Go ahead, Jeff. Go ahead. You read your question.
So the question is, what we've talked about up to this point is, from a carrier perspective, why you might want to go the direct routing trunk approach versus the direct routing PBX approach, and how that benefits the carrier. My question is, what's the market driver? What would compel you to buy the PBX version versus the trunk version?
I mean, yeah, depends how you use your PBX, I think is the answer. Does your user, are they used to using soft keys, or do they have PBX tools that you need to put in a portal? Do you want them to get notifications in Teams for things that happen on the PBX? Do you want them to participate as a registered user in call queues and hunt groups where you have to be a SIP user registered to the PBX? You have to be user aware. So, just why you'd use a PBX, really, I think. I mean, if those things aren't important, they probably should just be a trunk user in the first place. Did I answer it, or was that smug?
No, you answered it.
Okay.
I still struggle with why, the additional price point that it brings when you're bringing your UCAS seat or your own PBX as a carrier. You're adding more price, and when you're utilizing an integrator, you're adding more to your cost element as a carrier. How can you justify that within your product set or within your product design to compel users to buy it for a higher price point?
It's efficiency. I mean, it's willing to spend on ease of use. It's, Microsoft Teams is on everyone's desktop already. There's nothing new to learn. Even I always use my mom as an example. I think even my mom could figure it out. Maybe not, but we all, so then that's really important. Usability, deployability. On our thing, you just open up Teams when you come into work the next day, and it's there. There's when you click calls, it now has a dial pad and you can dial, kind of thing. And when you see there's a new app, kind of thing. So I think that's for these. There's the pendulum swings for what people are willing to pay for, and what's a commodity, and this isn't a commodity. We've seen a lot of people add it to sort of premium seat types. So hey, we have a 15, 25, 35. With the 35, you get the Teams integration. So it gets people to do the upsell.
Okay, great. Hey, Micah, thank you. And just before we go further, on behalf of all the moms out there, the Cloud Communications Alliance disavows your comments about moms not being able to understand.
My mom fully endorses what I've said.
Let's see. God, this is probably a really softball for Kevin. For those with the NetSapiens branded app, what's the best way to integrate Teams and keep their app?
Well, and that's a tough one. I wish that was a softball, because obviously if you're running our app, then Teams doesn't integrate with our app. If you're running their app, then obviously you're not integrated with the NetSapiens branded app. So you can still mix and match, but you can't put them together into one app, obviously. So you could be Teams on your desktop, you could be Teams, you could run both clients, but you can't put the clients together. There's not actually an easy answer on that one.
It's two soft phones. Yeah, it's two separate soft phones. So the NetSapiens one's registers to NetSapiens. The Teams one registers to NetSapiens. So users can have both. Like mix and match is important. See that a lot of organizations, there's a few power users of Teams and they want to call in Teams, but everyone else is fine with whatever they're using already.
Right.
And that's been, but if, again, 60 million people daily using Teams Mobile, they're already using it. A lot of those people are going to say, hey, we'll just put NetSapiens there. Yeah.
Right. And I think it's really going to depend, right, on what you use primarily, where you do your chat, where, so, and nothing says you can't run the same thing. You don't have to run the same thing in all employees. So like I said, your retail employee might just be, a PBX user, where, the guy in the office might be a Teams user, all in the same platform. But yeah, I wouldn't end up running, Snap Mobile and Teams. I don't think that would make sense.
So that was actually my question, and just a quick follow up. So your recommendation probably would be to run both applications in harmony, but to maybe sign in via SIP registration on the Teams app and just use that as a soft phone, and that's kind of the integration.
Well, I don't know that I would use both. I would probably end up picking one or the other, depending on which one is more important. They're both a phone. So then the question is, what has
bad
the most?
phrasing. Maybe not both per person, but like as an organization, we give the app to some people, and then other people just use Teams.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. Depending on what they need, which one they're, what has the features that they need. Right. Let some people use Teams. Let some people use Snap Mobile, depending on what they need for their job.
Great. By the way, folks, we're going to have another Teams webinar in a couple months from maybe from a different aspect because there's been a lot of interest in this. But there seems to be a roar going up from the cloud asking Chris Carbello to stand up. And Chris is from Meta, and to hear a little bit about Metaswitch's take on this aspect. So, Chris, feel free to unmute yourself, turn on your video, and go at it.
Yeah, I kind of feel like I'm at a dance and people are talking, next to you. Yeah, Joe, we talked before this, and happy to participate in an upcoming webinar. Certainly, given the demand you had for this, it is an important topic and important to hear a lot of voices. I think Micah did an outstanding job at describing the various options. So I won't, go through our whole pitch, right now, just at the last minute, but suffice to say, we offer a carrier SBC that's certified for direct routing with Teams. Have been doing so for the last 10, 11 months or so. We continue to offer our Max UC platform to enable carrier delivered UCaaS. And integrating that environment into Microsoft Teams, and certainly to the extent that we are now part of Microsoft, it gives us some insights into how best to do that. So I think that's what we can say for now, and happy to participate in the future or talk with anyone directly, to provide any additional details.
Great. I'll tell you, only a Cloud Communications Alliance, just great. And Chris, we're going to get you on the next one. We want to delve into this as
absolutely.
Deep as
Yep.
Just wonderful. Let me see. Did I miss anybody's? I probably missed a few questions here. Hang on a second. Hey, Greg Zweig, go ahead, unmute yourself.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead. The floor is yours.
In which regard?
You were asking about 10 to 100 users.
No, what I was really saying, I was really just sort of echoing Mika's statement about somebody asked why, we have a solution similar to Ribbon Connect where we do integration with existing PBX or UCaaS. And one of the earliest use cases we've seen is particularly in large enterprise, we see people saying, hey, I've got a big investment in Cisco or Avaya, or I have a existing UCaaS contract with NetSapiens. There's another person here on the call. But I have 100 users. I got 10 users. I got 50 users. They're the executives or they're my remote salespeople. And they're already using Teams aggressively, the Teams mobile app. They just want a way to be able to do native calling out of Teams. And by integrating the existing environment with the Teams environment, you kind of it solves a problem for them because they either don't have the money or the interest, or as both of the speakers mentioned, the use case might not be Teams oriented. The use case might be traditional telecom oriented for most users. So that integration point, I think, is a lot more impactful than people might think, and customers are absolutely willing to pay for it because relative to doing other things, making wholesale changes, it's very economical.
Well, a good comment. I'd say we could go on probably for another half hour or so. They're coming in. For example, Jared Haven's asking about the expected margins on integrating Teams, and these are all great topics. All another reason for us to have another Teams webinar very quickly. So you'll be hearing from us. We recorded today's webinar. We're going to send out a link to everybody later in the day. Give me the next slide, please, guys. We have some upcoming webinars. The next big one we have is the CloudCom Summit. It's going to be March, based in the UK. That's the Cavell event that we're really proud to be part of. So stay tuned for that. You'll see other information about our other webinars coming up. Next slide. Want to again thank our sponsors, NetSapiens, Poly, ScanSource. Thank you, guys. We couldn't do it without you. And really, a round of applause, if you will, for our speakers. I mean, you guys were just great today. A great topic, and thank you all for your support and for being members of the Cloud Communications Alliance. We'll catch you on the next one. Thanks a lot, everybody. Have a good day.
Thanks a lot, Jared. Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks, guys.
Good one, Joe. Good one. Can you hear?
Treff, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Good one, I said.
Yeah, good. That was a really good. Those guys were great.
Looking forward to the one in March. We are sponsoring it.
Oh, good.
It's a shame
this morning at 7 a.m. I had a conversation with Mr. Townsend about the event.
Well, you know what? This community there aren't very many relevant communities in this market. You know, we've got the CCA, we've got the Cavell stuff themselves.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure there's anything else worth doing that. We sponsored the WebEx1 conference recently. It was just so big.
Yeah.
I don't think any of the sponsors were happy with it.
Yeah, I'll tell you that the platform that we've chosen to use, the hop on, hop in, it seems to be the best as far as emulating the live experience, to some degree. All right, anyway, listen, man, you have a good rest of the day. I'm gonna keep working.
Gotta go and cook dinner. See you later.
All right, enjoy. Ciao.